The phenomenon of the Eucharist is not merely a religious ritual, it is a mystery that transcends all human logic. Millions of believers over the centuries have witnessed transformations that defy scientific understanding, moments when bread becomes flesh and wine becomes blood, revealing a reality that transcends the material world. Faith teaches us that during the consecration, Christ is truly present, but the magnitude of certain miracles goes beyond what tradition has ever told us. Imagine the scene. A simple host on the altar, shrouded in silence and reverence, suddenly manifests visible signs of transformation. Those present feel a mixture of awe and wonder, a spiritual weight that seems to touch their souls directly. Scientists have attempted to analyze some of these phenomena, but even with all modern technology, no study has been able to reproduce or explain what happens. Here, the line between faith and reason blurs, making it clear that there are dimensions that human logic has not yet grasped. Accounts of Eucharistic miracles span centuries and continents. From small villages in medieval Europe to contemporary churches in Latin America, witnesses describe extraordinary signs. Hosts that turn red like fresh blood, wines that upon observation reveal organic particles resembling human tissue. Each event is not merely a physical phenomenon. It is a call to reflection, an invitation to recognize that God's presence is not limited to words, but manifests itself in concrete and tangible ways. Throughout history, the Catholic Church has documented hundreds of cases of Eucharistic miracles, subjecting them to rigorous analysis before officially recognizing them. One of the best known occurred in Lanciano, Italy, where bread and wine, consecrated in the 8th century, were transformed into real flesh and blood before an unbelieving priest. To this day, modern scientific examinations confirm that the tissue is human heart tissue and the blood type AB. No natural explanation has been able to justify such a phenomenon. It is as if the faith of thousands of years converged in an instant, making the invisible visible and profoundly touching those who have eyes to see. But the mystery lies not only in the physical transformation. There are reports of spiritual effects accompanying the miracle. People report an inexplicable heat, tears for no apparent reason, an intense peace, or an emotion that seems to transcend time and space. Scientists can measure heat, mass, and chemical composition, but they cannot capture the spiritual experience, the inner change that occurs before something so sublime. Here, the phenomenon transcends matter and reminds us that the Eucharist is not just a symbol, but a bridge between the human and the divine. At the same time, it is important to understand the biblical context of the Eucharist. Jesus, at the Last Supper, instituted this sacrament as a memorial of his sacrifice, an expression of love and surrender that would be perpetuated throughout history. But the real presence, transubstantiation, shows us that the event is not merely symbolic. Faith teaches us that the bread and wine maintain their appearance and flavor, but their essence is transformed. It is at this point that the most extraordinary Eucharistic miracles manifest, making the invisible reality visible. Each testimony is an invitation to reflection. Scientists and historians, though fascinated, often encounter limits they cannot overcome. There are phenomena that defy chemistry, biology, and physics, demonstrating that spiritual reality operates in layers beyond what human logic can comprehend. For the faithful, these miracles reinforce the certainty of Christ's presence in the Eucharist. For skeptics, they are enigmas that remain unsolved, reminding us that not everything can be measured or explained. Eucharistic miracles also remind us of the universal dimension of faith. Whether the event takes place in a small rural church or a historic cathedral, the impact is the same. The human heart recognizes the presence of the divine. It is a language that transcends cultures, languages, and centuries. Science tries to understand, but faith feels. Reason observes, but the soul experiences. And it is precisely this direct experience that makes each account so powerful and unforgettable. Furthermore, the scientific investigation that accompanies some of these events reinforces the credibility of the miracles. Many cases have been analyzed by independent laboratories using samples preserved for centuries. The results confirm the authenticity of the phenomenon, but offer no natural explanations, which only deepens the mystery. Here, science and faith meet, not to compete, but to demonstrate that the material and spiritual worlds can coexist, each with its own language of truth. The impact of these miracles is not limited to the church or academic studies. They have a profound effect on the lives of ordinary people. Believers report conversions, spiritual renewals, and strengthening of faith after witnessing or experiencing one of these events. In many cases, entire families are touched, and entire communities experience moments of intense prayer and devotion. The Eucharist, in this sense, is more than a rite. It is a channel of personal and collective transformation, a reminder that the divine can manifest itself concretely in our world. What if we consider the historical perspective? Over the centuries, the Church has faced skepticism, persecution, and internal doubts about the authenticity of Eucharistic miracles. Even so, extraordinary cases continued to occur, often with witnesses who had no interest in fabricating stories. This continuous record of inexplicable events reinforces the idea that there is something greater at work beyond human comprehension, an intervention that defies time and logic. The study of Eucharistic miracles also leads us to question the very nature of reality. What does it mean that something material can be transformed into something spiritual and yet remain present in the physical world? What does this reveal to us about the relationship between matter, soul, and divinity? Each miracle is a window into infinity, a reminder that the visible world is only one layer of existence, and that there are invisible dimensions that shape our experience of life. Finally, the mystery of bread and wine invites us to personal contemplation. It's not just about observing a phenomenon. It's about realizing that within the simplicity of the sacrament lies a depth that the human mind cannot fully grasp. It's a call to reverence, faith, and openness to the transcendent. With each consecrated host, with each drop of wine, we are invited to remember that the divine is not distant, but present, touching our lives in ways that defy explanation. The phenomenon of the Eucharist, therefore, is not merely an isolated miracle. It is a continuous manifestation of God's presence among us. It is a reminder that although science advances and explains many mysteries, there are realities that remain beyond its reach, waiting to be experienced through faith. And each testimony is an opportunity to draw closer to the truth that transcends the visible, demonstrating that the spiritual world is real and active. When we look at the bread and wine, we must remember that we are faced with something greater than ourselves, a mystery that unites heaven and earth, that defies reason and illuminates the soul. It is an invitation to recognize that there are invisible forces at work, signs of divine love that span centuries and continents, uniting millions of people in an experience that is at once simple and extraordinary. Thus, the mystery of bread and wine reminds us that not everything can be explained, but everything can be experienced. The Eucharist shows us that faith has the power to touch the impossible, to reveal the divine in our daily lives, and to transform hearts with a power that not even science can fully comprehend. It is the starting point for a journey of adoration, curiosity, and reverence, an invitation to look beyond the visible and realize that the supernatural is within our reach. Every century, reports of hosts and wines transforming into royal blood emerge as inexplicable enigmas. The phenomenon known as a Eucharistic miracle arouses disbelief, fascination, and above all, reverence. Those who witness it are perplexed by something that defies science, demonstrating forces operating beyond human comprehension. This is not just an isolated event. These records have been documented, analyzed, and recognized by the Church throughout history, solidifying the mystery of transubstantiation in extraordinary cases. One of the most well-known miracles occurred in Lanciano, Italy, during the 8th century. A priest, questioning his faith, consecrated the bread and wine and witnessed the transformation before his eyes. The host became flesh and the wine became blood. Centuries later, modern scientific examinations proved that the tissue was human heart tissue and that the blood was type AB. No chemical reaction, no natural process could produce such a phenomenon, and to this day, scholars remain without satisfactory answers. For the faithful, this is an undeniable sign of the real presence of Christ, a reminder that the divine can manifest itself tangibly in our world. But Lanciano is not an isolated case. In Buenos Aires, Argentina, the host, consecrated at a regular Mass, began to exude blood, a phenomenon witnessed by dozens of people and later analyzed by independent laboratories. The results confirmed that it was human blood, again type AB, identical to that recorded in other miracles. Scientists, doctors, and theologians gathered to examine the phenomenon, but none could find a natural explanation for the event. This miracle, like many others, not only defies logic, but also strengthens the faith of those with eyes to see. The emotional effect on those who witness it is profound. It's not just the physical transformation that's impressive, it's the spiritual impact. People report feelings of peace, tears for no apparent reason, intense warmth, and a sense of divine presence that permeates their body and soul. It's as if matter is a conduit to the supernatural, a bridge between the visible and the invisible, where the love of Christ becomes tangible and palpable. This is the aspect that most intrigues scientists. They can measure physical properties, but they can't capture the spiritual experience, the emotion, and the faith that accompany each event. Another famous case occurred in Orvieto, Italy, during the 13th century. A consecrated host began to bleed in front of a crowd. Subsequent tests confirmed that it was human blood, preserved in perfect condition for centuries. Even more impressive is that Eucharistic miracles exhibit consistency. Cardiac tissue, type AB blood, and characteristics indicating high biological complexity. For scholars, this is no coincidence, but a pattern revealing divine intervention. The phenomenon of Eucharistic blood also invites us to reflect on the relationship between faith and science. No matter how much biology, chemistry, and physics advance, there are dimensions of reality that remain beyond human reach. Every miracle is a reminder that the spiritual world operates parallel to the material world, and that there are forces that cannot be measured, explained, or reproduced. Science observes, but faith feels, reason questions, but the soul perceives. Beyond their physical manifestation, these miracles have a profound effect on people's lives. Many reports indicate immediate conversions, spiritual healings, and strengthening of faith. Entire families are touched, communities unite in prayer and devotion, and the experience becomes a catalyst for personal transformation. The Eucharist, in these moments, ceases to be merely a rite. It becomes a living testimony of Christ's presence, concrete proof that the divine manifests itself in extraordinary ways in our world. Historically, the Church has rigorously documented each miracle. Before officially recognizing an event as a Eucharistic miracle, detailed investigations, interviews with witnesses, and laboratory analyses are conducted. This care aims to ensure authenticity and separate natural phenomena or falsifications from truly supernatural manifestations. It's a process that takes years, sometimes centuries, but patience demonstrates the seriousness and depth of faith behind each recognition. It's also important to note that Eucharistic miracles transcend cultural and geographic boundaries. They occur in different parts of the world, affecting people of different languages, traditions, and historical contexts. The universality of these phenomena indicates that the presence of Christ in the Eucharist is recognized in all cultures, reinforcing that faith is a global phenomenon that is independent of science, location, or time. In addition to historical cases, there are contemporary records of hosts and wines transforming into flesh and blood. In countries like Brazil, Spain, and the United States, modern testimonies continue to emerge, confirming that the mystery remains active. Each new case is accompanied by independent analysis, photos, and detailed documentation. Still, modern science cannot reproduce or explain these phenomena, reinforcing the idea that something beyond matter is at work. The symbolic dimension is also profound. The blood that bleeds in the Eucharist is not just a physical event, it is a manifestation of Christ's sacrifice, a reminder of the unconditional love he demonstrated on the cross. For the faithful, touching or seeing this blood is a direct experience of God's grace, tangible proof that the divine cares about every detail of human life. The experience is transformative, evoking not only worship, but also introspection and repentance. The scientific aspect of Eucharistic miracles continues to intrigue researchers. Microscopic analyses reveal fibers of human heart tissue, complex structures, and surprising preservation over the centuries. For modern biology, it is impossible for such changes to occur without supernatural intervention. For theologians, it is confirmation that the Eucharist is a living sacrament, where the mystery of faith becomes a tangible reality. Furthermore, the miracle of the Eucharistic blood is often accompanied by spiritual phenomena: the scent of roses, inexplicable lights, intense heat, and a sense of divine presence. These effects cannot be measured, but are witnessed by thousands. They reinforce that the experience is holistic, physical, emotional, and spiritual. It is confirmation that the divine touches the world in multiple and simultaneous ways. The impact of these miracles is also reflected in evangelization. Reports of spiritual transformations motivate sermons, articles, and studies, leading people to learn more about faith and the sacraments. They not only inspire personal devotion, but also strengthen entire communities, creating a link between science, history, and spirituality. In short, the blood that bleeds in the Eucharist reminds us that there are mysteries that defy human understanding. It challenges us to recognize that matter can be transformed by divine power, that faith transcends logic, and that the supernatural can manifest itself in concrete ways. It is an invitation to contemplation, reverence, and openness to the mystery that dwells at the heart of the Eucharist. Each recorded event is proof that although the world advances in science and technology, there are dimensions of reality that remain beyond human reach. The real presence of Christ in the bread and wine is not just a doctrine, it is something that can be seen, felt, and experienced. It is confirmation that the divine is present in the world in ways that defy explanation, touching lives, transforming hearts, and renewing faith. Reflecting on the bleeding of blood, we realize that the Eucharist is more than a sacrament. It is a portal to the divine, living proof that Christ's love manifests itself in extraordinary ways that defy biology, chemistry, and logic. It is the miracle that reminds each person that the supernatural is not distant, but accessible, tangible, and transformative. Every century, extraordinary accounts emerge, recounting phenomena in which the bread and wine consecrated in the Eucharist reveal signs of living human tissue. These events defy all scientific explanation and profoundly touch the hearts of the faithful. This is not merely a symbolic change. In some cases, cardiac structures have been observed appearing within the host, as if the very heart of Christ were beating before the eyes of those present. Initial disbelief gives way to fascination and adoration, for it is impossible to deny the presence of something beyond the natural. One of the most documented miracles occurred in Lanciano, Italy, where in the 8th century a consecrated host began to manifest characteristics of human tissue. Over time, modern microscopic examinations revealed cardiac muscle fibers preserved in stunning detail. The associated blood was type AB, consistent with other Eucharistic miracles, and remained unchanged for centuries. For scientists, such evidence is inexplicable. For the faithful, it is tangible proof of the living presence of Christ in the Eucharist. The emotional impact on those who witness such phenomena is profound. Witnesses report a mixture of reverence, awe, and joy. Some describe a warm feeling in their chest, as if divinity itself were interacting with their body and soul. Others feel an inexplicable peace, tears well up for no apparent reason, and hearts open to a deeper understanding of faith. The miracle, therefore, is not merely physical, but a complete spiritual experience that connects the human to the divine in a direct and intense way. In Buenos Aires, Argentina, a similar phenomenon was recorded in the 20th century. A consecrated host began to exhibit signs of visible human tissue, accompanied by small pulsations noticed by doctors who observed the case. Laboratory tests confirmed that it was human heart tissue with type AB blood. Even after advanced analysis, scientists were unable to reproduce the phenomenon or explain the preservation and apparent vitality of the tissue. For the Catholic community, this is a powerful reminder that the presence of Christ in the Eucharist is real and alive, and that the divine can touch the world in ways that defy all human logic. These miracles transcend geography and time. Similar reports emerge from various parts of the world, including Spain, Brazil, and the United States. Each event is accompanied by detailed testimonies, photographic records, and scientific analyses that, while failing to explain the origin or preservation of the tissue, validate its authenticity as a human and biological phenomenon. This consistency reinforces the idea that Eucharistic miracles are not isolated cases, but recurring manifestations of an active divine mystery. The incomprehensible nature of science in the face of these phenomena is part of what makes them so impactful. Doctors and biologists can study cells, muscle fibers, and blood, but they cannot measure the spiritual dimension, the theological meaning, or the emotional connection that accompanies each miracle. The miracle of the living heart defies reason and awakens contemplation, reminding us that faith has a dimension that transcends the limits of science and human logic. Beyond the physical aspect, Eucharistic miracles profoundly affect the spiritual lives of those who witness them. Many people report experiences of conversion, renewal of faith, and repentance. The phenomenon awakens a deeper understanding of Christ's sacrifice and the importance of the sacrament in daily life. Each heartbeat in the host seems to remind the faithful that the Eucharist is not just a symbolic rite, but a living channel of grace and divine presence capable of transforming lives. The Catholic Church, over the centuries, has rigorously documented each Eucharistic event, ensuring that authenticity is preserved and accounts are verified. Before recognizing a miracle, detailed investigations, interviews with witnesses, and independent scientific examinations are conducted. This care reflects the seriousness of the faith that underpins such events, demonstrating that these are not fantasy or superstition, but carefully analyzed phenomena that continue to fascinate scholars and devotees alike. The effect on the local community is equally remarkable. Churches that house miraculous hosts or wines become pilgrimage centers, where thousands gather to contemplate the mystery and experience the divine presence. These collective experiences strengthen faith, promote spiritual unity, and create an environment in which prayer and devotion are intensified. For visitors, seeing human heart tissue in a host is more than a physical phenomenon. It is a confirmation of faith that transcends time and space. From a theological perspective, the miracle of the living heart reinforces the doctrine of the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. Every cell, every fiber of the observed tissue is a manifestation of divine life, reminding the faithful that Christ is not merely symbolic in the bread and wine, but fully present. This understanding changes the way the community experiences the sacrament. It is not merely a reminder of the sacrifice, but an opportunity to experience the divine in a tangible, real, and direct way. These miracles also provoke reflection on the intersection between the natural and the supernatural. Science examines the body, matter, and biology, but cannot measure the spiritual dimension, the presence of divine love, or the transformation of the human heart in the face of a miracle. It is this interplay between the visible and the invisible that makes each phenomenon so powerful and impactful. The miracle of the living heart is not just a physical event. It is a complete experience that involves all levels of human existence, body, mind, and soul. Another fascinating aspect is the consistency between historical and modern miracles. Despite occurring in different contexts, separated by centuries, the events share similar characteristics. Human heart tissue, type AB blood, extraordinary preservation, and a profound spiritual effect on the faithful. This consistency suggests that this is no coincidence, but a planned and ongoing manifestation of Christ's presence in the Eucharist, reinforcing the power of the sacrament and the importance of active faith. In addition to the visible phenomena, there are also reports of sensory manifestations accompanying the miracle. Floral scents, unexplained lights, and sensations of warmth or presence are often reported by those close to the host or chalice. These signs reinforce the spiritual experience, connecting the physical miracle with an emotional and transcendental dimension that cannot be measured, only felt. Each event of the living heart in the Eucharist is an opportunity to contemplate the mystery of faith and reflect on God's presence in everyday life. It reminds us that the divine is not distant or abstract. It can be tangible, palpable, and transformative. The experience challenges rationality, touches the soul, and invites worship, reinforcing that faith is not merely an intellectual belief, but a profound and personal experience with the Creator. In short, the living heart in the sacrament teaches us that Eucharistic miracles go beyond the usual transubstantiation. They reveal the real and palpable presence of Christ, challenge science, and strengthen faith. Each witness becomes part of a larger narrative where the divine touches the world directly, transforming lives and renewing hearts. It is proof that, in the Eucharist, we find not only spiritual nourishment, but the very essence of Christ's life pulsating before us. The miracle reminds us that matter, when consecrated, becomes a vehicle for the supernatural. The host, which displays signs of human heart tissue, is a living channel of grace, connecting heaven and earth. For the faithful, touching or contemplating this phenomenon is an experience that transcends human understanding and strengthens faith indelibly. Every account, every testimony, every scientific analysis that fails to explain the event reinforces the mystery and beauty of the Eucharist. The living and pulsating presence of Christ in the bread and wine is an invitation to contemplation, deep prayer, and sincere adoration. It is a reminder that the divine is constantly at work in the world, revealing itself to those who have eyes to see and hearts open to believe. In conclusion, the living heart in the sacrament is not just a physical phenomenon. It is a manifestation of divine love, a confirmation of faith, and a call to continual adoration. It teaches us that the Eucharist is the meeting point between the human and the divine, the visible and the invisible, time and eternity. And above all, it reminds us that when Christ is present, the impossible becomes a tangible reality, transforming lives forever. Throughout church history, there are countless accounts of hosts and chalices emanating unexplained light or energy during Eucharistic celebrations. Witnesses describe sudden flashes of light, sparks of light, or an aura of energy that enveloped the sacrament in such a way that it seemed alive. These phenomena do not follow known physical patterns. They arise spontaneously and disappear as mysteriously as they appear, leaving those present in a state of reverence and awe. What is striking is not only the visual intensity, but the profound spiritual effect these manifestations have on those who witness them. On some occasions, as recorded in small Italian parishes, the consecrated host seemed to radiate a golden light that supernaturally illuminated the altar. The light did not come from any visible physical source, and highly sensitive cameras captured details that defy technical explanation. The faithful report feeling warmth and an intense peace, as if a living presence inhabited the sacrament. Scientists and independent photographers who analyzed the recordings were unable to find any natural causes for the luminescence, which reinforces the divine nature of the phenomenon. Another fascinating account occurred in Poland, in a church where the host began to pulse with luminous energy during the consecration. Parishioners perceived small waves of light that seemed to expand through the air, reaching every corner of the church. Those near the host reported feelings of lightness, as if the weight of worries had momentarily disappeared, and tears welled up involuntarily. The description is consistent with testimonies from around the world. The energy not only illuminates physically, but also transforms emotionally and spiritually all who receive it. The phenomenon of light and energy also challenges science because it cannot be measured by conventional instruments. Photometers, radiation detectors, and advanced cameras record changes, but they do not explain the origin or nature of the energy. It is not detectable electricity, radiation, or heat. It is something that transcends known physical laws. This mystery reinforces the faith of those who believe in the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist and raises profound questions about the relationship between matter, spirit, and the divine. The emotional impact on the faithful is intense and immediate. Many describe feelings of reverence, awe, and adoration, mixed with genuine wonder. Some claim to hear soft sounds or feel an almost imperceptible vibration, as if the very life of the sacrament were being transmitted to the hearts present. The experience not only confirms faith, but elevates it, providing a spiritual intimacy difficult to find in other religious manifestations. These phenomena are not restricted to a single region or historical period. Reports emerge from the Middle Ages to the present day, spanning continents and cultures. Churches in Italy, Spain, Latin America, and even the United States have recorded episodes of light emanating from consecrated hosts. Despite the geographical distance and the differences in context, the testimonies present remarkable similarities. Sudden brightness, invisible energy, and profound emotional and spiritual effects, suggesting a consistent supernatural pattern in the presence of Christ in the sacrament. The Church, always cautious about recognizing miracles, carefully documents such events. Before any official approval, a detailed investigation is conducted, including interviews with witnesses, photographic analysis, and study of the historical context. This rigorous approach ensures that the phenomena are treated seriously, avoiding hasty interpretations or hasty explanations. Official recognition, when it occurs, reinforces the idea that the light and energy emanating from the host are not simple illusions or psychological effects, but real manifestations of the divine presence. Beyond the physical and visual evidence, spiritual effects are consistently reported. Many believers describe feeling an inexplicable joy, the feeling that their prayers have been answered, or a profound sense of connection with God. For some, The experience serves as a turning point in their spiritual lives, inspiring conversions, reconciliations, and renewal of faith. The luminous host is not just a visual spectacle, it is a catalyst for inner transformation, reinforcing that the sacrament is a living bridge between heaven and earth. The phenomenon also raises fascinating theological questions. If the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist is confirmed by visual and energetic manifestations, the sacrament becomes more than a symbolic ritual. It is a tangible point of contact with the divine. Each light, each aura, each pulse of energy reinforces the doctrine of the real presence, demonstrating that the miracle is not only spiritual, but also perceptible to the human senses, albeit in a limited and mysterious way. Modern records include high-resolution photography and video, allowing scholars and believers to revisit the events. Even with advanced technology, images capture only a fraction of the phenomenon. Direct experience, according to reports, is incomparably more intense. Witnesses claim the light appears alive, interacting with the space and participants in ways no simulation could replicate. This element of interactivity, although invisible to instruments, confirms the perception of something supernatural happening before their eyes. In many cases, the phenomenon manifests only during the consecration, reinforcing the link between the liturgical action and the divine presence. The light and energy emerge at the exact moment the priest pronounces Christ's words, as if the Creator himself were responding to the faith and obedience of those present. This perfect synchronization between human action and divine manifestation heightens the mystery and strengthens the understanding that the Eucharist is more than bread and wine. It is Christ present, acting tangibly in the world. The collective effect is equally impressive. When energy and light manifest in a celebration with many worshippers, the sense of community and spiritual connection is amplified. Everyone perceives the phenomenon, regardless of their position in the temple, creating an environment of intense and shared worship. The collective experience not only confirms individual faith, but also strengthens the spiritual unity among participants, generating moments of profound reverence and contemplation. In addition to visual manifestations, there are reports of subtle physical effects, such as increased heat, a feeling of lightness in the environment, and even unexplained scents. These additional signs reinforce the presence of the divine and make each event unique. The combination of light, energy, and sensory effects creates a multidimensional experience that connects body, mind, and spirit, leading the faithful to deep and lasting contemplation. Each documented phenomenon contributes to the understanding of the Eucharist as a living channel of grace. The light and energy not only testify to the real presence of Christ, but also remind us that faith is not abstract. It is experiential, tangible, and transformative. The accounts serve as an invitation to continued adoration and reflection on the depth of the sacrament, showing that God chooses to manifest his presence in ways that defy human understanding. In conclusion, the light and energy emanating from the host remind us that Eucharistic miracles are not just about the physical, but about the integral transformation of the human being before the divine. Each testimony is a call to contemplation, adoration, and renewal of faith. It is proof that, when the Eucharist is experienced with reverence and devotion, it becomes a meeting point between the visible and the invisible, between the human and the divine, revealing the presence of Christ in a palpable and extraordinary way. Eucharistic miracles remind us that faith is not a distant abstraction. It is a living force capable of interacting with reality. Bread and wine, which to science seem like mere matter, become channels for something that transcends the physical. Witnesses describe experiences that defy any rational explanation, hosts that bleed, glow, or show signs of life. Science attempts to measure, analyze, and classify, but no matter how advanced it is, it encounters limits that only spirituality can understand. The faith that transforms reality is one that is not content with the superficial. In Eucharistic miracles, we see that Christ's presence is not confined to the symbolic. It manifests itself, touching human senses and the soul. Stories of hosts that reveal human tissue, heartbeats, or luminous energy prove that the Eucharist is a meeting point between the earthly and the divine. For millions of believers, these experiences become living proof that faith is more powerful than any scientific argument or skepticism. Each account reinforces the conviction that the Eucharist is not just a ritual, but a transformative experience. Those present feel peace, joy, and a profound connection with God. Many say their lives have never been the same after witnessing a miracle, that their faith was renewed and their hope was rekindled. The Eucharist, then, ceases to be merely bread and wine and becomes a portal of direct contact with the Creator. The impact goes beyond the individual. Entire communities are touched by these events. Churches that have witnessed Eucharistic phenomena report increased devotion, reconciliation among members, increased participation in celebrations, and a renewed sense of spiritual purpose. Collective faith becomes tangible, as if the miracle itself were calling the community closer to God. Even in the face of scientific explanations that attempt to rationalize events, the spiritual experience remains. Doctors, biologists, and chemists analyze samples, search for natural phenomena, but the essence of the miracle eludes any equation. It's not a lack of evidence. It's that faith operates in a dimension that science cannot encompass, and this is part of its beauty. The Eucharistic miracle proves that the divine manifests itself beyond human comprehension, reinforcing the need for trust and worship. Reflection becomes inevitable. If matter can become a vehicle for the divine, then faith, when genuine, can alter our perception of reality. The Eucharist teaches that the impossible is merely a barrier for those who doubt, and that God's presence is more palpable than imagined. Those who live with an open heart realize that Eucharistic miracles are not isolated rarities. They are constant reminders of Christ's active love present in everyday life. It's not just about observing visual or physical phenomena. The miracle also resides in inner transformation. Believers report feelings of purification, forgiveness, and spiritual renewal, as if each pulse of energy in the host touched the wounds of the human heart. Faith not only sees the impossible, it experiences it. And at this point, science bows before the power of the Spirit, recognizing that there are dimensions of reality that only the supernatural can explain. The miracle of the Eucharist transcends cultural and geographical boundaries. Reports come from all corners of the world. Italy, Spain, Latin America, the United States, and other countries have witnessed phenomena that defy explanation. Regardless of the language, culture, or scientific background of those present, the experience is universal: awe, fear, joy, and connection with God. Faith, in this context, becomes a language that transcends all barriers, uniting the human with the divine. Reflecting on the power of faith in the Eucharist, we realize that the miracle is not merely external. It transforms perceptions, strengthens hearts, and invites each individual to a life of more intense devotion. Those who approach the sacrament with reverence feel called to live their faith more authentically, to love more deeply, and to recognize the presence of Christ in every detail of the world. Science, no matter how advanced, can never replicate the experience of touching divine reality. It can study tissues, analyze luminosity, or record heartbeats, but the spiritual impact that arises in the heart of those who witness the miracle remains unquantifiable. And this is precisely what makes the Eucharist an eternal phenomenon. It is not merely visible or measurable, it is experiential, felt in the soul, capable of transforming entire lives. Eucharistic miracles also challenge our understanding of time. Some accounts claim that phenomena lasted seconds, while others lasted for hours, but the spiritual effect remains eternal. Those who experience such events report that the feeling of closeness to God persists for days, weeks, or even months, altering the way they perceive prayer, worship, and daily life. Faith, in this context, transforms time and the reality in which the faithful live. It's important to emphasize that the Eucharist is not a display of power, but a call to worship and humility. Miracles don't happen to impress, but to strengthen faith and remind us that the divine is present in what seems simplest. The bread and wine, symbols of love and surrender, become living instruments of grace, reminding us that every act of faith is recognized by God and can manifest effects that transcend human logic. The final invitation is clear: to live our faith authentically, aware that miracles are not just historical events, but ongoing experiences that bring us closer to the heart of Christ. The Eucharist is a daily reminder that the impossible can be touched, that God's presence is real, and that faith is capable of transforming not only the soul, but the reality around us. And when bread becomes flesh and wine becomes blood, we see that faith can touch the impossible. It is in this encounter that science and spirituality meet, not as rivals, but as witnesses to the power of the divine at work in the world. Faith becomes a bridge between the visible and the invisible, between the human and the eternal, showing that Eucharistic miracles are not just historical accounts, but living experiences that continue to transform hearts every day.